John Russell and Rick Hickman back with you, and in recent weeks we've had the distinct pleasure of interviewing some of the greatest artists of the top 40 era, but I don't think that John and I have been more excited anticipating the opportunity to speak with someone as we are with this great talent who graced us with monster hits, nominated for Grammys, appeared on TV, on television shows, and on some of the most remembered variety shows ever, and has a wealth of a human story to boot. It is certainly our honor to welcome into the Legend Spotlight, Lesley Gore.
Wow. That's quite an introduction. Thank you, John and Rick. That was amazing.
Very well deserved.
I don't know, you just, sometimes my life has been what I call really, I've played it by ear, if you will. I've never made a plan, and life has just sort of carried me. So that's the way I live my life, and that's what I hope we can get to in this interview. Play it as it lays. You never know what you're going to be given in this life.
Lesley, I know you started out very, very young, but let's even back up a little bit. I know you were born in New York, raised in New Jersey, but talk to us about before you hit. Was your childhood somewhat normal?
Oh, I believe so. I grew up I was my parents' only child at that time, so they were extremely doting. They had been married a couple of years. They had been childhood sweethearts. They were living in their first apartment in Brooklyn. And in fact, I think the first year I think my crib must have been in the master bedroom. And then we moved to a two-bedroom apartment. And my brother was born a little bit later. I remember pretty much hanging out with my mom before going to school and maybe going to a movie and going shopping on Flatbush Avenue and spending the weekend with my dad, maybe a couple of, visits to Coney Island, which was in the neighborhood. So I think it was pretty normal. It was certainly very loving and very warm and very comfortable.
When did you get bit by the music bug, Lesley?
It's really hard to say because I think I must have been born with it. It's just in my DNA. You know how kids will wander in a crowd or at a fair. My parents really never worried about me. If I scattered off, I could always be found where the music was. And for some reason, those vibes always attracted me, and I went wherever the music was.
You, of course, run into Quincy Jones, who, of course, is a legendary guy right now. What was he like at that time? Was he just starting out himself?
Actually, Quincy had already had what could have been a career for any other human being by that time. Mm-hmm. He had started playing trumpet. He was born in Chicago, and at a very early age, his dad took Quincy and his brothers out to Seattle because basically the only thing that there was to become in Chicago was a gangster, basically. And Quincy went out to Seattle, and he started hanging out with Ray Charles and playing more trumpet, and he got involved doing arrangements. So he actually went on the bus and did arrangements and worked for some of the greats, as well as the Basie Band, ultimately, which he later came back and conducted to put the Sinatra on the road. And so Quincy had a huge life before then. What I was for him was the beginning of recording life. Mm-hmm. I think I was the very first person that he ever did that went top 10 and indeed number one.
And at the time, you were just a junior in high school when you had your first big hit, It's My Party, working with Quincy. How is it that you went from being simple, everyday girl going to class to being a recording star?
It wasn't exactly quite that leap. I knew that I wanted, I knew I loved music, and I don't think that I had a career in mind or making a record, or I don't think there was anything in mind except that I wanted to try to better my craft. And in so doing, I discovered a vocal coach in New York, and I called him and I made an appointment and I went to see him, and we began working together on a weekly basis. I would go into New York from school almost every Thursday afternoon, and work with him for an hour. We would do exercises, and then his wife would come into the studio, and she would play. She was the piano player, so we would do a fair amount of his singing, maybe a dozen songs or so. So it was a way for me to keep up with my craft, learn more about what I should be doing, and increase my repertoire. One day, my vocal coach said to me, "You know, we're going to do a little bit of vocalizing today, but I'd like us to go into the studio upstairs." We were in the Ed Sullivan Building, which was on 53rd and Broadway. It's now the David Letterman Building. And so we went upstairs to this little studio. In about 15 minutes, we knocked out 3 piano voice demos. And those demos got to Quincy Jones, believe it or not. It was like 2 degrees of separation. So he was looking for some young talent at Mercury, and he heard my demos and called me up, and we began working together. We began looking for material. We began spending a little time with the arranger, Klaus Ogerman, picking out other material. And when we finally had a session ready, which was It's My Party and 2 songs that Paul Anka wrote for me, we went in and recorded those songs. And just as luck would have it, and I say that with all sincerity, there was a lot of talent in the room, but this business takes an awful lot of luck. As luck would have it, It's My Party was released immediately and became the #1 song in the nation in about 6 or 8 weeks.
It's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened to you.
Now, you're still in high school at the time, correct?
That's right.
How did people react around you?
Well, you know, it was interesting because I went to a very small high school, and they were all aware of the working process. They knew that I was, because I was in a graduating class, believe it or not, of 35 other women. We were all quite close. And we all knew what everyone else was doing. You knew if someone was dating someone. You knew if someone was talented in some field or not. So my friends were all aware of what was going on, and in fact heard the demos and were there at my first Ed Sullivan show, and was all very supportive. Where it became much more difficult for me was matriculating onto college at Sarah Lawrence, where I was already a kind of a celebrity coming into the situation, which is never quite good. Also, Sarah Lawrence being very much more of a it would have been a whole lot hipper to have been Joan Baez than Lesley Gore. Let me put it to you that way.
We get it.
They didn't love me at all.
When It's My Party, Lesley, it hit big time. And, I mean, even though you couldn't have been prepared for that, could you? I mean, just the adulation and
well,
all
I really don't think so. There was no precedent. There was no way to kind of look it up. Very few young women actually got that opportunity. Most of them were girls groups, so there were 3 of them or 4 of them. They were kind of protect each other or have each other's backs. There weren't too many single women at that time actually doing what I was doing. So no, there was really no way to protect ourselves. And in fact, I'm going to really date myself, but the truth is the truth. We didn't even have answering machines in those days. So when a disc jockey, as one of you might say, living in Tenafly, New Jersey, you get on the horn and you look for Gore in Tenafly, New Jersey. It wasn't a huge leap.
Oh, that is phenomenal.
And, of course, you were very serious about your studies at Sarah Lawrence because you actually had some TV and movie contracts coming your way, but you were more focused, weren't you?
I was. I think I really understood how fickle this business is, although I wasn't smart enough to understand and get out at an early age. But I did understand it and realized that I could not depend on it for my sole and singular happiness.
You don't own me. I'm not just one of your many toys.
Went to school like you did. I mean, that showed some maturity on your part at a very young age.
Yeah, but you know what? I was also very fortunate in that my parents were very simple people, and they knew how to have a good time, kind of on a shoestring. We didn't get exposed to an awful lot of music in the house because they weren't exposed to an awful lot of music. But once I got into college, I guess in high school, my repertoire got wider because I kind of allied myself with a young guy down at Music Manor, which was a music store in Englewood, and I would come in every week, and he would suggest another singer for me, and he sort of got me into my girl jazz singer phase. I loved Anita O'Day and June Christie, and some people who were under the radar from Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald. So I began to get interested in other things and realized that there was an awful lot to see and listen to out there, and that's what college meant to me, an opportunity to do that I sort of figured I would probably never get again in my life.
You know, your dad was Leo Gore. He was a manufacturer of clothing. Do you think his business background kind of shed a little bit of light for you on understanding that you might have to have another career?
Yeah, I think so. My dad loved what he was doing. I don't think he was in it for the money either. And then he sort of found himself chasing the dollar. One season would be great, the next season wouldn't. And I think that altered his personality to a large degree. And I think that there was a big lesson he taught me, that it, as much as you need money in this world, and I really didn't take care of myself, it is not what life is about.
For that 2-year span from It's My Party right on through, it was like hit after hit after hit. And like you said, you were red hot for that time. Talk to us a little bit about the pressure. I mean, all of a sudden, we've talked to other folks who say, you're only as good as your last hit. Well, you kind of kept hitting there for a while, and were you able to take a breath?
Yeah, what I did basically was, they were asking me to be everywhere and anywhere, and I picked and chose where I could be. I did the promotion for the record on weekends when I could leave school on a Friday afternoon. And in terms of longer, like actual gigs or television shows that were on the West Coast, we scheduled them during slightly longer vacations, maybe a Christmas or an intercession or Thanksgiving when I had a couple of more days to spare. So that was sort of how I balanced it. And I think that, in a way, I saved myself a lot of aggravation.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together.
Women were not treated very well then. I know I was fortunate. I never had to go on one of those Dick Clark caravans and sit on a bus for weeks on end because I wouldn't have. But I know but what I used to do is join them at times, like in New Orleans, for their extra large concerts, and we would be picked up, and I'd get on the bus with them going over to the venue. And I could see that they were having a great time, but I could also see that they were treated like absolute shit. Yeah. And, they were kids, so they were taken advantage of. So, that's an awful lot of what I remember as well. One
tour that you were involved with was I think, the Beatles' very first tour, the Beatles and the Beach Boys. So what was that like for being a girl on that tour?
It wasn't that long a tour. We did a couple of shows, and basically it was televised. I found all of the Beatles to be absolutely charming and very gentlemanly-like. And the Beach Boys were kind of shy.
Ah. Okay.
So they were not like, they were not like, tweaking your breast or looking up your skirt or, there wasn't that kind of harassment as you would get from a lot of the boys' bands. Sure. They were just really sweet guys, and they were all so damn serious about their music. And that's why they were there, There's a lot to be... that seemed to be the way they worked their lives.
And how were you received? I'm talking about by the crowd. I mean, we heard the stories like with the Beatles that people couldn't wait for the act to get off the stage or whatever. But you were a big act in and of yourself. I mean, and especially girls, were you accepted during that show?
I really was. Yeah, it was very early in their career, and they were received very well. But so were the Beach Boys, and so was I.
Sure.
Very enthusiastic crowd.
'Cause now it's Judy's turn to cry. Judy's turn to cry. Judy's turn to cry. 'Cause Johnny's come back to me. Yeah, now it's Judy's turn to cry. Judy's turn to cry. Judy's
You'd also mentioned some of those great variety shows that you got to be a part of. You did everything from Shindig to Hullabaloo and, of course, American Bandstand. Was it fun doing those shows or more of a chore?
They were all fun. Dick Clark was really and Shindig were really not very challenging at all, to be perfectly honest, because they were lip sync shows. Hullabaloo really asked you to step up to the plate and be a performer. And frankly, I was in it for the challenge. It was always great to go on Dick Clark and be able to lip sync your song and have a couple of seconds and watch your record sell more that week. But as a challenge as an artist, doing a Sullivan show that was live or doing a Hullabaloo was much more demanding.
You were even a guest on What's My Line, and I'm wondering if they guessed who you were.
They did.
And now let's all play What's My Line?
And now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which my friends on the panel blindfold themselves.
They guessed me. It was Arlene Francis. It was Orson Bean. I can see them sitting there.
Sure.
I'm trying to... Bennett Cerf, and I can't remember who the fourth was. And I made the mistake of... what I did was I referred to something as we.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I believe it was Arlene Francis who picked it up, and they guessed who I was.
Well, that shows that you had made it, to say the least.
Another show that you were a part of was, of course, just a pop phenomenon, and that was Batman. You played one of the Catwoman's minions, I think, in that show. You were kind of a little love interest of Robin in that show, or he was of yours. Talk to us about that. That was a show at the time, Lesley, that it seemed like everybody wanted to be a part of, right?
It was indeed, and I'm very proud to tell you I got that role, honestly, through nepotism.
Okay.
Okay.
My father's business partner's brother was the producer of the show, and a wonderful man by the name of Howie Horowitz, who started in the business with a television show called 77 Sunset Strip. Now I'm really going back. Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
Yes, really, we do.
Okay, and then he went on to do Hawaii, what was it?
Was it 5-0?
Hawaii.
Hawaiian
Hawaii
Eye?
5-0. Yeah, no, Hawaii 5-0
Okay.
and another one, and he did very well. And then he had a period of where he was looking for his next job, and then William Dozier asked him to come aboard on Batman. So he called me one day and he asked me if I'd like to play Catwoman's assistant and come on and out to L.A. for about 10 days and hang with him and his family. And it was we really had a lot of fun. He was probably one of my favorite, not real uncles, but like an uncle that age, and he was just a wonderful guy, full of hell, and he gave me my first film job, basically.
And that was another option open to you, obviously, Lesley. In addition to this brilliant singing career you had going, was acting as well. And you did take advantage of that a little bit, but again, school kind of came first and maybe squelched maybe some of your opportunities that way as well, right?
It did. I think when I look back, probably what I should have done at that point when I felt the hits were dwindling was I probably should have started going into acting school and becoming more a part of the Broadway community at that time. And what I did was I made another choice, which I think turned out not to be the best, and that was to move out to Los Angeles and the West Coast because all of the record companies had left New York at that point. So what I did was I followed the record career as opposed to the live on Broadway career, and that may have been a technical error.
And obviously, you're well-rounded, well-versed, an intelligent lady. You also recorded songs in other languages, I think French, German, Italian, and you had some hits with those as well.
We did that as a part of, when Mercury was really working my stuff and cared about me as an artist, and they would take a song that they thought was good or find a few of them and find a German or a French producer or an Italian producer, do the relanguage on top of the track, and they would put out EPs or albums there too. So when a record company is behind you, it works pretty well.
And did you do that phonetically, or are you actually multilingual?
Most of it, certainly the German I had to learn phonetically, and the Italian, I spoke some French, but I worked with the coach as well.
Je ne sais plus ce qui vient d'arriver entre nous. Je ne sais plus pourquoi je suis tout à coup.
And then the music changed. I mean, things got a little bit more psychedelic, and obviously you were still involved in school, and things changed, and you made some references to the record company backing you in that. And we've talked to other artists too. I mean, this music business, for folks that really don't know it, really could just eat you up and chew you and then spit you to the side a little bit. And I kind of get the feeling that you had kind of your run-ins with that kind of the aspect of the music business too, right, Lesley?
Unfortunately, it does come with the turf.
Yeah.
And I have to say that doing business in this business has been brutal.
Yeah.
Has been brutal.
But you survived it. I mean, your brother, who we talked about,
I'm here.
We talked about your brother Michael actually went on, and you worked with him in the show later on in Fame, and co-wrote some tunes there. So you started going from, I guess, a singer to more or less behind the scenes and writing some tunes, right?
Which is really what I tend to do more today.
Yeah.
I'm more into the writing. I'm writing a musical. I'm writing music for that. I'm writing lyrics for that. I'm writing music for other artists. So that's sort of where I'm where I'm levitating to.
And your work in Fame certainly got you an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
You've been nominated for Grammys as a singer, as a composer, Oscars. Did you actually get to attend to those shows?
I believe I was at the Oscars, and I've been to a number of the Grammys, and I certainly was to the earlier ones, which are so different from now. It's sort of a joke. Mm-hmm. I remember like the 10th anniversary of Naris.
Yeah.
It was like in the Sheraton Ballroom, and there were maybe 500 people. I mean, it wasn't televised, I can assure you of that.
Right.
And I remember looking around the room and, gee, I don't recognize anybody. Who are these people? And I went to the ladies' room, and the woman in front of me was Edie Gourmet, and that really made my night. At least I met Edie Gourmet.
That was actually going to lead to my next question, because obviously you made friends in the business when you were working and doing some of the tours. Were there some friends that you really got close to, or specifically those that might have helped out a young lady in the business?
I met a lot of people. There seemed to be a lot of interest in helping me, and certain people were of help for business reasons. Either they were managing me or they weren't. Lou Christie and I have a lovely friendship relationship, and we also every now and again get to sing together, and that's a joy for both of us. But what has been removed from that equation is any kind of remuneration or money, and that I find that any time a situation has come up that actually involved money with a friend, usually the relationship deteriorates.
Along the side.
We spoke to Tommy James just 1 week ago, and we had asked, telling him in anticipation of this interview, if he had known you, and boy, he was very excited to answer how much he adored you and just thought you were a special individual.
He's a very sweet guy. I've watched him for years, and I tell you, it's still thrilling to watch him get up on a stage. When I'm on a show with him, I make it my business to get to the wings when Tommy is on, because I always enjoy hearing those songs again, and he's part of my youth as well. I grew up on a lot of this music, so it's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, and people out there today could still hear your music on television, of all things. A lot. I mean, you're on like CSI at different times, different shows like that. Your music will pop up. So you still have a hand in the business, and you're still out there. I know you're still touring as well a little bit.
Every now and again,
yeah.
I have to say the economy has hit certain level performers on a very hard level. The real top money makers are still working, but anyone under that and people beneath really are, I think, struggling. We could depend on casinos at one point. Not that I enjoy doing that, but it was a real revenue stream for a long time. And, I mean, the casinos are down. If the casinos are down, entertainment is not doing well. So really what I do now is, I try not to worry about what problems the industry is going through, and I try to be creative and stay involved with my own projects so that I can feed my creative soul.
And I saw an interview with you, and you're talking about your fan club and your fan base, and some of those folks have been with you from day one and very, very loyal. And that's and in addition to picking up obviously the new ones too, that's always a thrill. But they almost become family for you, don't they? They
really do, and they're so different from the people who are trying to handle the administrators.
Yeah.
They're just all about support and love. And, as you say, some of these people, my fan club president has been with me for, I think, 35, 38 years now.
Wow.
And it's kind of remarkable. And it's always wonderful to see those faces in the audience because they're always smiling and they're and it is like seeing your family in the second or third row. It's a wonderful feeling.
With the shows out there today like American Idol, I mean, it seems like you can literally be a star overnight. What is the big difference maybe between starting out when you did to what's going on today?
I think the playing field's got a little wider. There are a few more women out there, but they're basically still playing in a man's world. Mm-hmm. If I were 16 or 17 or 14 or 13 right now, I do not think I would be headed into show business because personally, for me, I would never have had the guts to expose myself on a show like American Idol because I didn't have the experience. I would have wanted to have the technique down and know I was going to be great, and I would have to feel I was great. So that would take a lot of practice, and and I don't think I would expose myself that way. And one of the reasons that I can't watch most of those shows is I find them exploitative. So, I probably wouldn't have had a career if I were starting now. I'd be doing something else. So I have to give the women who are out there today a tremendous amount of credit. And yet, I can say that, and at the same time, I can see that there's room out there for Lady Gaga and Esperanza Spalding. So, we can complain, we can say it's hard to get out there, but there are people figuring it out, and that's what creative people do.
We do thank you for taking some time to chat with us here, and it's been a thrill of ours. Rick and I have been a big fan of yours for a lot of years.
Thanks, John. It's been my pleasure talking with you and with Rick. Thank you, Rick. I hope you have the rest of a really great summer, and we catch up again real soon.
And to keep up with Lesley Gore, simply go to lesleygore.com. Lots of great information, news, even some tour things as those come along. We'll look forward to hearing more from Lesley Gore.
She don't know